What? Li Mei Lin jumped up from her chair, her expensive Cartier bracelet clinking against the glass table. Say that again. The notary adjusted his glasses and calmly read the lines of the will a second time. My daughter Li Mei Lin shall inherit 2,300,000,000 won only on the condition that she works exactly 1 calendar year as a teacher at the rural school in the village of Yeongin, Fujian Province. Should she refuse or terminate the work prematurely, all assets will go to a charitable foundation. Mei Lin felt the ground slip from under her feet. Her flawless makeup couldn't hide the paleness of her face. 26 years of a luxurious life, elite education in London, high society events, travels around the world, and suddenly a rural school in the middle of nowhere. This must be a mistake, she whispered, sinking back into her chair. Father couldn't. I'm afraid not, the notary replied softly but firmly. The will is properly drawn up, witnessed by 3 individuals, and notarized. Your father was of sound mind and memory. One of the unfamiliar men at the table cleared his throat delicately. Miss Lee, allow me to introduce myself, Park Min-ho, manager at East Asia Bank. I have been assigned to inform you about your personal finances. What's wrong with them? Mei Lin asked, wary. The total credit card debt amounts to 15 million won. The repayment deadline is in 2 months. If unpaid, the bank will be forced to initiate collection procedures. Mei Lin felt the room start to spin. 15 million in debt? How was that possible? She was used to spending money without thinking about amounts, the latest Hermès collection, a vacation in the Maldives, a new Lamborghini. Her father had always covered her expenses. So I have no choice, she said slowly, clenching her fists. There's one more detail, added the notary, leafing through documents. Your father decreed that you receive only 20,000 won for initial expenses. No more money will be provided until the probation period is over. 20,000? Mei Lin shrieked. My shoes alone cost 50. The second man, who had been silent until now, finally spoke. Mr. Li accounted for that as well. I am Choi Sung-min, a real estate agent. I have been tasked with arranging the sale of your apartment and car to partially cover your debts. Mei Lin stared at them as if they were speaking a foreign language. Sell the apartment? A 300 square meter penthouse overlooking Seoul, which she had furnished over 3 years. Sell the Lamborghini she had driven for only 6 months? Father has lost his mind, she murmured. This is some sort of revenge. Allow me to read one more line, the notary interrupted gently. My dear daughter, if you are reading these lines, it means I am no longer here. I know you think I am cruel, but believe me, this is the only way to give you what you have never had. A real life. Mei Lin covered her face with her hands. She remembered the last conversation with her father 3 months ago. He had tried to talk about her future, about the meaning of life, but she had brushed him off. She had a dress fitting for a film premiere. Where is this village? She asked in a faint voice. 1,000 kilometers from Seoul, replied the notary. Rural area, population 300. The school has 24 children enrolled. How do I get there? By train to the regional center, then by bus. Your father arranged for us to organize your move tomorrow morning. Tomorrow? Mei Lin jumped up again. But I need time. I need to think, pack. I'm afraid there's no time, said the banker gently but firmly. Creditors have already filed lawsuits. Every day of delay costs dearly. Mei Lin looked at her hands with perfect manicure, at her expensive rings, at her Patek Philippe watch. In just one day, all this would be gone. She, accustomed to luxury and attention, would end up in a remote village among strangers with only 20,000 won in her pocket. Fine, she whispered. I agree. That night, Mei Lin stood by the window of her penthouse, looking at the lights of nighttime Seoul. The city that had been her home all her life would be left behind tomorrow. In the corner of the room stood 2 suitcases, everything she could take with her. The rest of her belongings had already been taken away by appraisers. Her best friend, Park So-yeon, sat on the sofa, sobbing into a handkerchief. Mei Lin, this is madness. Run away to Europe, declare bankruptcy, for God's sake. Run on what? Mei Lin smiled bitterly. I don't even have money for a ticket. Credit cards are blocked, accounts seized. But a year in the village. Among those people. So-yeon shivered, as if they were wild beasts. You think I don't understand? Mei Lin turned from the window. I've never even fried an egg in my life. I have no idea how to teach children. The last time I was in school was 10 years ago. Then why go? Because it's the only chance, Mei Lin replied quietly. 2,300,000,000 won, So-yeon. That's enough not only to pay off debts but to start a new life. So-yeon hugged her. I'll be waiting for your return. Promise me you won't give up. I promise. Mei Lin squeezed her friend's hand tightly. No matter how hard it is, I'll endure this year. In the morning, a modest sedan arrived at the entrance, not the luxurious limousine with a driver that Mei Lin was used to, but an ordinary taxi. The driver, a sturdy middle-aged man, got out and took her suitcases. To the station? He asked, glancing at her outfit. Mei Lin was dressed in an Armani suit, 50,000 won high heels, and carried a Chanel handbag. Completely inappropriate for a trip to the countryside, but she had no other clothes. Yes, to the station, she nodded, getting into the back seat. On the way, the driver tried to start a conversation. Traveling far, miss? To Heilongjiang Province, Mei Lin replied, looking out at the passing familiar streets. Wow! What takes you there? Work, she said briefly. At the station, Mei Lin faced her first problem. Her heels kept getting stuck between floor tiles, and she had to drag her heavy suitcases herself. She couldn't bring herself to hire porters for 20,000 won. Train to Gyeonggi-do, she told the clerk. Regular or compartment? Compartment, of course, Mei Lin answered without hesitation. 1,200 won. Mei Lin took out her wallet and counted the money. After the taxi, she had 18,500 left. 1,200 for the ticket seemed like a huge sum. Can I have regular? She asked hesitantly. 800 won. Still expensive, but she had no choice. In the carriage, Mei Lin realized her mistake. Open racks, noise, smells of food, children's cries, a nightmare for someone used to silence and comfort. Her neighbor, an elderly man with a 3-day stubble, was chewing boiled corn and curiously examining her expensive suit. Not local, I see, he remarked friendly. From the capital? Yes, Mei Lin replied shortly, trying not to show irritation. And what brings you to Gyeonggi-do? Work? Not Gyeonggi-do. Further, to the village of Yeongin. The old man nearly choked on his corn. Yeongin? That's the middle of nowhere. Only retirees and children left. All the youth went to the cities. I know, sighed Mei Lin. Are you perhaps the new teacher? The old man perked up. Rumor has it someone's being sent to the school. Seems so. That's great. The old man beamed. The kids have been without a proper teacher. Li Gang-do is managing alone, and it's tough for him. Who's Li Gang-do? Mei Lin asked, intrigued. School principal. Good guy, just too strict. Came from the city a few years ago, put everything into the school. They say he used to be a lawyer, earned good money. And what made him give up law for a rural school? Mei Lin wondered. The old man grew solemn. He had a sister. She wanted to teach too, go to the village to educate kids. But tragedy struck. She died in a car accident. He decided to fulfill her dream after that. Mei Lin pondered. So this principal, Li Gang-do, had dedicated his life to his sister's memory. And she was going to endure hardship for money. How would he treat her? The journey stretched for a day. Mei Lin barely slept. The hard berth, constant noise, and strange smells gave her no rest. By morning, she felt exhausted and crumpled. In Jiangito, a new challenge awaited: the bus station. Crowds, shouts, chaos. Mei Lin spent half an hour finding the ticket office for buses to Yeongin. To Yeongin? The clerk asked again. That's remote. Runs once a day, and not every day. Lucky for you, today there's one. 301. The bus was old and shabby. Seats covered in worn faux leather, dirty windows, smell of diesel everywhere. Mei Lin sat near the driver, hoping it would be less bumpy. The road to the village ran along country tracks. The asphalt had long disappeared, and the potholes were so deep that the bus practically bounced. Mei Lin watched in horror as endless fields and rare wooden houses passed by. How do people live here? She muttered. Fine, they live, she heard the voice of a neighbor, an elderly woman with a shopping bag. The air is clean, nature's beautiful. Unlike the city, all dust and exhaust. But there's nothing here. No stores, no entertainment, no. But there's peace, quiet. And people here are kind, not like in the cities, everyone for themselves. Mei Lin stayed silent. She couldn't imagine living without malls, restaurants, theaters, beauty salons. What could she do here for a whole year? The bus stopped near a crooked road sign, Village of Yeongin. Mei Lin got out onto the dusty shoulder, dragging her suitcases. No other passengers were at this stop. Around her stretched a bleak sight, several dozen houses, most in need of repair, a dirt road with deep rain ruts, and a complete lack of any signs of civilization. No cafes, no shops, not even a proper road. Wonderful, muttered Mei Lin, looking around. Her high heels immediately sank into the mud left by yesterday's rain. Trying to pull her foot out broke one heel. Just perfect, she exclaimed, struggling to keep balance. You must be the new teacher? She heard a male voice behind her. Mei Lin turned and saw a man around 35, wearing a simple plaid shirt and jeans. His dark hair was slightly tousled by the wind, and his piercing brown eyes were striking. Despite his simple clothes, he exuded confidence and inner strength. Yes, Li Mei Lin replied, trying to look dignified despite her broken heel and dirty shoes. Li Mei Lin. The man scanned her from head to toe, a trace of disappointment flashing in his eyes. Li Gangdu, he introduced himself curtly. Principal of the school. Nice to meet you, Mei Lin extended her hand, but he didn't hurry to shake it. May I ask, his voice was cold, have you ever worked in a school? No, but I learned quickly, Mei Lin answered, trying to hide her insecurity. I see. Li Gangdu picked up one of her suitcases. Do you have any teaching qualifications? No. But I have a degree in economics from the University of London. Economics, he repeated with barely concealed irony. That will surely help you explain multiplication tables to a 7-year-old. Mei Lin felt a flash of anger in her chest. This man didn't even know her and was already passing judgment. I came here to help children, she said sharply. Help? Li Gangdu stopped and looked at her carefully. Or to serve your punishment? What do you mean? You think I don't know who you are? Daughter of Lee Young-ho, media tycoon. The whole internet is full of news about the spoiled heiress who lost her fortune because of daddy's will. Mei Lin turned pale. She had hoped that no one in this remote village would know about her situation. I don't see how that's relevant to. Very relevant, Li Gangdu interrupted. You didn't come here out of a desire to help children, but because you had no choice. That's a big difference. And how do you know my motives? Mei Lin snapped. Maybe I genuinely want to. Want to? He glanced at her expensive suit and broken shoes. And 50,001 heels? In a suit worth a local doctor's monthly salary? It's the only outfit I have. That's exactly the problem, Li Gang-du said coldly. You live in a world where shoes cost as much as a car, and school is a place of grueling labor. Mei Lin felt tears welling up. She was exhausted from the long journey, the constant stress of recent days, the sense of helplessness. I'm not to blame for being born into a wealthy family, she said softly. And I'm not to blame that my father put me in this position. Li Gang-du looked at her silently, then picked up her second suitcase. Let's go. I'll show you where you'll be living. They walked along the village's single street, and Mei Lin looked around in horror. Crooked fences, peeling paint on houses, broken windows. Several locals peered curiously from their gates, watching the unusual pair. Here's the school. Li Gang-du stopped in front of a two-story building, once painted yellow, now closer to the color of withered grass. Mei Lin looked up and tried to hide her disappointment. The building clearly needed major repairs, plaster crumbling, several windows taped over, the porch slanted to one side. This is where I'll be working? She asked weakly. Yes, confirmed Li Gang-du. And you'll live there. He pointed to a small house next to the school. The house was in even worse condition, paint completely peeled, fence collapsed, and weeds grew higher than a person in the yard. This is a living space? Mei Lin asked, stunned. Adequate. There's a stove, a well in the yard, and the toilet is also outside. Everything you need for life. Toilet outside? She asked in horror. Where else? Li Gang-du shrugged. There's no sewage system in the village. Mei Lin imagined herself trudging out to a wooden outhouse on cold autumn mornings and shuddered. At home, she had a bathroom bigger than this little shack, with a jacuzzi, shower, and heated floors. Let's go inside. Li Gang-du opened the creaking door. Inside, it was even worse. One room, about 15 square meters, with an iron bed and a sagging mattress, an old wooden table, 2 chairs, and a small stove. Windows were patched with newspapers, and the floor had a makeshift rug of rags. There's electricity? Mei Lin asked, noticing bare wires on the ceiling. Yes, but power cuts happen, especially when it rains. And there's no internet at all. No internet? She exclaimed. Why would you need it here? Li Gang-du shrugged. The nearest provider is in the regional center, 100 kilometers away. Mei Lin sank onto the shaky chair and stared at the floor. No internet. No connection to the outside world. She, used to being online 24 hours a day, would be completely cut off. There's a phone at the school, Li Gang-du added, as if reading her thoughts. You can call sometimes. Sometimes? Long-distance calls are expensive. You won't get far on a teacher's salary. And the salary here? She asked, afraid of the answer. 18,000 won per month. Mei Lin quickly calculated. 18,000 is less than she spent on a single restaurant meal. With that, she couldn't even eat properly, let alone cover other expenses. How can anyone live on this? She muttered. Like everyone else, he replied dryly. Tomorrow at 6 a.m. Meet me at the school. I'll show you the classrooms and the curriculum. Classes start the day after tomorrow. The day after tomorrow? But I don't know anything yet. I need time. No time. The children have been without a regular teacher for a month. Figure it out as you go. Li Gang-du headed for the door but paused at the threshold, and one more piece of advice. Buy proper clothes and shoes. In that state, you'll become a laughingstock. The door slammed, leaving Mei Lin alone with harsh reality. She looked around and felt a lump rise in her throat. Just yesterday morning she had slept in silk sheets on an orthopedic mattress, and now she was sitting in a cold shack on a broken chair. Taking out her phone, she tried to get a signal, but there was none. Complete isolation weighed down on her. What have I done? whispered Mei Lin as the first tear slid down her cheek. The night in the village house was a nightmare. Mei Lin couldn't sleep, the mattress sagged under her weight, the walls creaked and rustled, and the cold seeped through every crack. By morning, she realized that without warm clothes and blankets, she would freeze. At 6 a.m., shivering from the cold, she approached the school. Li Gangdu was already waiting, holding a steaming cup. "Good morning," he greeted, eyeing her. "You don't look well." "Good morning," she replied, mirroring his glance. "Thanks, very encouraging," Mei Lin muttered. "Not criticism, just stating facts. If you want to survive here, you need to adapt." He opened the school door and led her through the corridors. Inside was slightly better than outside, painted walls, intact windows, though the furniture had clearly seen better days. "Here's your classroom." Li Gangdu opened a small room with about 10 desks. "You'll teach math and literature to the 3rd and 4th grades." Mei Lin entered the classroom and tried to imagine herself as a teacher. The blackboard was covered in chalk writing, desks arranged in uneven rows, and homemade posters with the alphabet and multiplication tables hung on the walls. "How many children are in the class?" she asked. 12. Ages 8 to 10. Different levels of ability, some read poorly. "And textbooks?" Li Gangdu went to the cabinet and pulled out worn books. "Here. 3rd grade math and literature. The program is simple. Teach counting to 1,000, multiplication and division, reading and summarizing texts." Mei Lin flipped through the pages. The problems seemed elementary, but she had no idea how to explain them to the children. Any teacher's guides? Lesson plans? No. Improvise. Improvise? She exclaimed. "I've never taught before." "Then learn. Quickly." There was no sympathy in his voice. Mei Lin realized she could expect no help. "Fine. And where can I buy clothes and groceries?" "Aunt Kim's store in the village center." "But prices are steep, everything comes from the region." After inspecting the school, Mei Lin went to the only village store. It was a tiny room in an elderly woman's house, with shelves stocked with canned goods, grains, bread, and essential items. "Hello," Mei Lin greeted the owner, a plump woman of about 60 with kind eyes. "Oh, you must be the new teacher," she said happily. "I'm Kim Yun Suk. Welcome to our village." "Thank you. I need warm clothes and groceries." "Of course. I have few clothes, but we'll find something." Aunt Kim showed a few sweaters, warm pants, and jackets. All simple, inexpensive, but good quality. Mei Lin, used to designer wear, frowned but had no choice. "That'll be 8,000 won," the owner calculated. 8,000? Mei Lin gasped. Almost half her money. "Yes, expensive," sighed Aunt Kim. "But everything is brought from the city. Transport is costly." Mei Lin paid, feeling her last money slipping away. Very little remained for food. "And what can I buy for dinner with 500 won?" she asked hesitantly. Aunt Kim raised her eyebrows in surprise. 500? "Almost anything. Bread, milk, eggs, potatoes, onions. Enough for a week if you're careful." In the evening, Mei Lin sat in her house by the cold stove, holding matches. She had no idea how to light it. In the city apartment, everything was automatic. Press a button, and it's warm. After half an hour of struggle, she managed to get a weak flame, but the smoke went into the room instead of the chimney. She opened the door, coughing and waving her hands. Good grief, she heard a familiar voice. "Planning to burn the house down too?" Li Gangdu stood at the doorway with a bucket of water. The chimney damper was closed, he explained as he entered. "Like this." He skillfully turned the lever on the stovepipe, and the smoke immediately went outside. "Thanks," Mei Lin muttered, feeling like a complete idiot. "I'll bring firewood tomorrow." You'd freeze by morning otherwise. How much will that cost? Nothing. It's customary to help neighbors. He turned to leave, but Mei Lin stopped him. Wait. What about food? I bought groceries, but I don't know what to cook. Li Gangdu turned and saw potatoes, eggs, bread, and a can of stew on the table. Can you boil potatoes? No, Mei Lin admitted honestly. Fry an egg? Also no. He sighed heavily. All right. I'll show you just this once. For the next half hour, Li Gangdu patiently explained how to peel potatoes, how to tell when the water was boiling, and how to fry eggs without burning them. These are basic things, he remarked. How have you survived until now? We had a cook, Mei Lin said quietly. A cook, he repeated with the same irony as in the morning. Of course. Listen, she burst out. I understand that to you, I'm a spoiled rich girl. But I didn't ask for this life. I didn't choose my parents. But you chose your lifestyle, Li Gangdu countered. No one forced you to live like a parasite. Parasite? Mei Lin flared. Who are you to judge me? A person who knows the value of money and hard work, he said coldly. Someone who doesn't spend fortunes on trifles while others barely make ends meet. And you're a saint, huh? Mei Lin snapped. Since you care so much about the poor and needy. Li Gangdu's face darkened. Don't interfere in my life. And don't try to justify your uselessness by pointing to other people's problems. He headed for the door but paused at the threshold. Goodbye, Miss Li. Classes start tomorrow at 7. Try not to embarrass the children with your ignorance. The door slammed, leaving Mei Lin alone with her thoughts and a pot of half-cooked potatoes. The next morning, Mei Lin woke to the sound of children's voices outside the window. She looked out and saw a group of kids of various ages heading to school. Some walked, some rode bicycles, and one girl held a 5-year-old boy by the hand. After quickly having yesterday's potatoes for breakfast, Mei Lin dressed in the new clothes from Aunt Kim's store. A simple gray sweater and dark pants made her look like an ordinary village teacher, though the coarse fabric was constantly uncomfortable. At school, Li Gangdu and 12 curious children awaited her. Kids, meet your new teacher, Li Mei Lin, he introduced her. Hello. The children chorused. Mei Lin looked at the class and froze. How to start the lesson? What to say? At university, she studied economic models and financial reports, but here were live children with expectant eyes. Hello, children, she began timidly. My name is... Teacher Li. Today we will learn. She glanced at the textbook, the 7 times multiplication table. We already know it, shouted a boy in the front row. Teacher Li taught us. Okay, Mei Lin flustered. Then, let's check how well you know it. 7 times 8, what's the answer? Hands shot up. 56. Answered the girl with braids. Correct. And 7 times 9? 63. Mei Lin realized the children knew the material better than she expected. She needed to make it harder. All right, now let's solve a problem. She opened the textbook to a random page. In the store. She stumbled over complicated terms. Teacher, can I go to the bathroom? One boy raised his hand. Of course, go, Mei Lin allowed, grateful for the break. Me too. And me. 5 minutes later, only half the class remained, while Mei Lin was still trying to understand the textbook problem. Teacher, a girl in the front row whispered, you don't know how to read? Mei Lin blushed. Of course, she could read, but the pedagogical terms and instructions in the textbook left her stumped. I can, I'm just choosing the right problem. At that moment, Li Gangdu peeked into the classroom. How's it going? Everything's great. Mei Lin replied quickly, though her red face told another story. Teacher Li. The children cheered. But Teacher Li can't read the problem. Li Gangdu entered the class and took the textbook. One glance was enough to understand the situation. This problem is for 5th grade, he said. You need page 37. Mei Lin wished the ground would swallow her. Not only could she not conduct a proper lesson, but she also mixed up the curriculum. Kids, let's help Teacher Li get settled, said Li Gangdu gently. Tell her what you've already learned. The children began excitedly recounting the material. Mei Lin listened, realizing her knowledge was clearly insufficient to teach even elementary school. After class, when the children went for recess, Li Gangdu stayed with her alone. That was a complete failure, he stated. I understand, Mei Lin said softly. But it's the first day. Children are not guinea pigs for your experiments. They deserve quality education. And what do you suggest? She snapped. Send me home? Gladly. Unfortunately, we have no other teacher, he sighed. You'll have to work with what you have. Thanks for the support. Support must be earned. So far, I see only tantrums and incompetence. Mei Lin felt tears welling up. She turned and almost ran out of the classroom. In the schoolyard, she met one of the students, a 9-year-old girl with serious eyes. Teacher, don't cry, the little girl said. My name is Yu. What's yours? Mei Lin, she sobbed. Beautiful name. Are you really from the capital? Yes. Are there many beautiful houses and shops there? Many. Then why did you come to us? It's better there, right? Mei Lin looked into the child's honest eyes and realized she couldn't tell the truth. She couldn't admit she was here against her will. I wanted to see how children live in the village, she lied. We usually live, you said seriously. Go to school, help at home, swim in the river in summer. But sometimes it's boring. Few books, and we never use the internet. What do you like most? Fairy tales. The girl brightened. Teacher Li sometimes reads them to us. About princesses, wizards. Do you want me to tell you a story about faraway lands? Mei Lin offered, unexpectedly. Yes. Yu's eyes sparkled. Then come after class. I'll tell you about cities where houses touch the clouds and cars drive without drivers. At that moment, other children gathered in the schoolyard. Hearing about stories, they were also interested. Will you tell us too? Asked an older boy. I'll tell everyone, Mei Lin promised, and for the first time in days felt something resembling joy. That evening, Mei Lin sat in the schoolyard surrounded by 8 children of various ages. She told them about her travels, London with its red buses and Big Ben, Paris with the Eiffel Tower, Tokyo with its neon lights. The children listened with their mouths open. For them, the world beyond the village was a fairy tale, and Mei Lin was a living link to this magical world. Is it true that in London there's a palace where the Queen lives? Asked Yu. True. I visited it. The palace is huge, with beautiful gardens and guards in red uniforms. How do people speak there? Mei Lin switched to English and said a few phrases. The children laughed, trying to imitate the unfamiliar sounds. Teacher, will you teach us English? Asked a boy named Miho. I'm not an English teacher, Mei Lin laughed. But you know it. And we don't know it all. At that moment, Li Gangdu came out of the school. He was about to leave, but the sound of children's laughter made him stop. What's going on here? He asked. Teacher Li is telling us about other countries. Yu blurted. And she speaks in English. Li Gangdu came closer and silently listened as Mei Lin explained the difference between British and American pronunciation. All right, kids, that's enough for today, she said after a while. Tomorrow I'll tell you about France. The children reluctantly left for home, and Mei Lin began gathering her things. Not bad, she heard Li Gangdu's voice. What do you mean? She asked, surprised. What you just did. The children were engaged. I was just telling stories. Not just that. You broadened their horizons. Showed them the world is bigger than our village. Mei Lin looked at him in surprise. For the first time in days, his voice had no sarcasm or criticism. Do you want me to show you something? He unexpectedly offered. They went into the school and climbed to the second floor. Li Gangdu opened the door to a small room Mei Lin had never seen. This is the library, he said. The room was filled with bookshelves from floor to ceiling. But there were very few books, the shelves gaped with emptiness. There used to be a decent library here, Li Gangdu explained. But after nearby schools closed, the books were moved to the regional library. Only the essentials remain. Mei Lin walked between the shelves. Old textbooks, a few volumes of classics, children's books with worn covers. And there's really no internet? She asked. No. The nearest access point is 100 kilometers away. But how do children get modern knowledge? How do they learn about the world? There's no way, Li Gangdu shrugged. Many of them don't even know what's happening beyond our region. Mei Lin thought for a moment. She had always taken access to information for granted. Not only did she have the internet, but also the ability to travel and see the world with her own eyes. And where are you from? She asked. Seoul. I worked at a large law firm. And what made you leave everything for this school? Li Gangdu's face darkened. That's none of your business. Sorry, I didn't mean to be tactless. He stood silently by the window, looking at the village sinking into the evening twilight. I had a sister, he said suddenly. Younger. Li So-yun. Mei Lin went quiet, realizing he was sharing something very personal. She wanted to be a teacher. Dreamed of working in a rural school, helping children from poor families get an education. I laughed at her dreams. Said it was romantic nonsense. What happened? Car accident, he replied shortly. 4 years ago. She was on her way to an interview at a village school. Now Mei Lin understood why Li Gangdu had left a successful career behind. And you decided to fulfill her dream? Something like that. Sold my apartment in Seoul, spent all my savings on renovating the school, buying equipment. Thought I could give the children the education So-yun wanted to give them. So you're also sacrificing your life for others? Li Gangdu turned sharply. That's completely different. I do it of my own will. And how do you know my motives? Mei Lin retorted. Maybe I really want to help too. You want to? Then prove it. How? Learn to teach properly. Study the curriculum, find a way to connect with the children. Become a real teacher, not just serve your sentence. Mei Lin looked at him, then at the empty library shelves. And what if I could do more? She said unexpectedly. What do you mean? I have connections. People who could help. Maybe we could find sponsors for the library, get new books, modern equipment. Li Gangdu looked at her skeptically. Your connections will cost. And the school has no money. Not necessarily money. Sometimes it's enough to ask properly. Ask your wealthy friends? His voice had a poisonous edge again. I'm sure they care deeply about the fate of rural children. You're judging me again. Mei Lin flared. I'm trying to offer help, and you? I'm a realist, Li Gangdu interrupted. Your friends won't spend money on a school in the middle of nowhere. For them, it's entertainment, not a serious necessity. Then what do you suggest? Accept that children grow up without a proper education? I suggest you learn yourself first, and then make Napoleon-level plans. He headed for the door but paused at the threshold, and remember, these children are not toys for your experiments. They have one life and one childhood. After the library conversation, Mei Lin realized Li Gangdu was right. If she wanted to become a real teacher, she had to take her work seriously. The next few days she spent in the school library until late at night, studying textbooks and teaching guides. The kerosene lamp electricity in the school was cut off at 9, lit the pages filled with her notes. Third-grade math turned out not to be as simple as it seemed. Knowing that 2 times 2 is 4 was one thing, explaining it to a child seeing numbers for the first time was another. How do I explain division? She muttered over the textbook. Share equally. What if the child doesn't understand what equally means? There was a knock at the door. Mei Lin looked up and saw Li Gangdu carrying a tray. Brought tea, he said, entering the library. Aunt Kim was worried you hadn't eaten dinner. Thank you, Mei Lin was surprised. This was the first friendly gesture from him. Li Gangdu set the tray on the table and noticed the sheets of paper covered with notes. What's this? Lesson plans. I'm trying to develop a proper program. He picked up one sheet and glanced over it. Not bad. But there's a mistake here. Where? The apple problem. You wrote divide 8 apples among 3 children. That's 2 2/3 apples each. 8-year-olds will have a hard time understanding fractions. Mei Lin frowned. And how should I do it? Take 12 apples. Divides by 3 evenly. Makes sense. And this? They bent over the textbooks, and for the first time, Mei Lin saw Li Gangdu not as a strict critic, but as a colleague. He patiently explained teaching techniques, showed how to structure lessons, shared experience working with children. Where did you get such pedagogical knowledge? She asked. Internet, books. When I started working at the school, I realized a law degree wasn't enough. Had to learn on the go. Just like me now. Yes. Only I had more time to prepare. They worked until midnight. Li Gangdu helped create problems, corrected mistakes in the plans, explained each child's peculiarities. Miho is very capable, but inattentive, he explained. You have to keep him engaged, otherwise he starts daydreaming. You, on the other hand, tries too hard. Afraid of mistakes. Why does she live with her grandmother? Where are her parents? In the city. Working. They sent her to her grandmother for healthy air. The girl misses her mother, so she tries to be perfect, just in case her mom takes her back. Mei Lin felt a pang in her heart. She knew what it was like to be abandoned by parents for their own goals. True, her father didn't send her to her grandmother, but he was rarely home anyway. And the other children? Each has their own story. Jin Ho lives with his grandfather. Parents died in an accident 3 years ago. Sumi helps her mother with the household, so often misses classes. Hyun Sik dreams of being a mechanic, but has skills in exact sciences. Mei Lin listened, realizing that behind every name in the class register was a living, often complicated, story. So the school isn't just a place to study for them, it's a second home, Li Gangdu nodded. Sometimes the first. Here they get not only knowledge but care, attention, hope for the future. And you manage all of this alone? Trying. Not always successfully. By the light of the kerosene lamp, Li Gangdu's face looked tired. Mei Lin suddenly realized the weight of responsibility on his shoulders. Why were you so negative toward me? She asked softly. Li Gangdu paused, choosing words carefully, because I was afraid. Afraid that you came here like a tourist. Play teacher, then leave, abandoning the children halfway. And now? Now. I see you at least are trying. It wasn't high praise, but to Mei Lin it sounded like victory. The following weeks became a true test for her. Every morning she woke at 6, stoked the stove, made a simple breakfast, and went to school. Lessons were hard, children sensed her uncertainty, and she still fumbled through the curriculum. But gradually things began to change. Mei Lin found her approach. She turned boring problems into engaging stories. Explained math using travel examples, connected literature to tales from different countries. Imagine you are flying in an airplane, she said to the children. The plane's speed is 300 kilometers per hour. How many hours will it take to reach Paris if the distance is 8,400 kilometers? The children calculated eagerly, imagining flying above the clouds. Evenings were devoted to self-study. Li Gangdu no longer criticized her methods, sometimes even praising clever approaches. Today Mio paid attention the entire lesson, he reported once after class. What did you do with him? Gave him an assignment for a traveler explorer, Mei Lin laughed. Now he doesn't just solve examples, he calculates distances between cities around the world. Not bad. Using his interest in geography. Learning from the best, she replied, and Li Gangdu smiled at her for the first time. But the real breakthrough came a month after her arrival. October in Yeongin village was rainy and cold. Mei Lin had already gotten used to stoking the stove each morning and pulling a warm sweater over her nightshirt. Her hands, once soft and well-groomed, had roughened from constant work, chopping wood, washing, cooking. That day, she was teaching literature when she noticed you sitting unusually quietly and pale. Are you feeling all right? Mei Lin asked. Yes, Teacher Li, the girl replied, though her voice trembled. After class, Mei Lin stayed with you. What's wrong, little one? You was silent, head down. Then suddenly she burst into tears. Mom called Grandma yesterday. Said she won't take me for winter break. Too much work. Mei Lin felt a familiar ache in her chest. She knew this feeling too well, when parents choose work over the child. You know what, she said, sitting next to the girl. Let's make this the best holiday ever, right here. How? You sobbed. We'll think of something fun. Maybe put on a play? Or a talent contest? Will it work? Of course. But first, let's talk to the other kids and Teacher Li. That evening, Mei Lin told Li Gangdu about her idea. A play? He asked. We don't have a stage, costumes, or... Let's make it. Mei Lin got excited. We can use the gym as a stage, so costumes from what we have. With what money? What if we don't buy anything, but make it ourselves? You said the locals have golden hands. Li Gangdu thought for a moment, so what are we going to put on? A fairy tale. The children love stories, and I know many from different countries. Can you write the script? I'll try. The next day, Mei Lin announced her plan to the children. The reaction exceeded all expectations. The classroom literally erupted with excitement. Will I be the princess? You asked, her eyes lighting up for the first time in days. You'll be the main character, promised Mei Lin. And I'll be the dragon, shouted Miho. And I'll be the wizard. The next 2 weeks became the busiest of Mei Lin's life. She wrote the script based on a Korean folk tale about a princess and a magical lantern, while the children eagerly rehearsed their roles. At first, Li Gangdu watched skeptically, but gradually he got involved. It turned out he had golden hands, he crafted the set from cardboard and plywood, and his technical education came in handy for creating lighting effects. If we place colored bulbs behind the screen, it will simulate magical light, he explained to Mei Lin, leaning over the blueprints. And how do we make the lantern glow? Battery-powered lantern inside a paper shade. Simple, but effective. Working together, they gradually grew closer. Mei Lin no longer seemed like a spoiled city girl, and he no longer seemed like a harsh critic. They were a team, united by a common goal. You really understand child psychology, he remarked once, observing how she worked with the young actors. I just remember myself as a child, Mei Lin replied. I know how important it is to feel needed and talented. Did you have a difficult childhood? In a way. My father was always busy. My mother has been gone since I was 3. I mostly lived with nannies and servants. I see, Li Gangdu said quietly. Mei Lin looked up and saw understanding in his eyes, not judgment. That's why you are so close to me, she added. I know what it's like to wait for parents who are always busy with something more important. The premiere of the play took place on Saturday evening. Almost all the villagers came, young and old alike. The homemade stage was decorated with the children's drawings, and soft music played from an old tape recorder. You, in the princess costume sewn by Aunt Kim from an old dress, looked truly regal. Miho, as the dragon, roared so convincingly that the little ones in the audience hid behind their parents. I am not afraid of you, evil dragon. You pronounced her main line clearly. I have the magical lantern of goodness. At that moment, Li Gangdu activated the prepared lighting effects, and the hall gasped in delight. The paper lantern in the princess's hands glowed with a soft golden light. The play was a huge success. The children performed with such enthusiasm that the audience laughed and applauded after every scene. And at the finale, when all the actors took a bow, the hall erupted in applause. Teacher Li! Shouted the villagers. Bravo! Mei Lin stood on stage with the children and felt used tears of joy on her cheeks. For the first time in her life, she was praised not for a beautiful dress or expensive jewelry, but for something truly important. After the play, Yu's grandmother, an elderly woman with kind, wrinkled hands, approached her. Thank you, teacher. My granddaughter talked about nothing but the play all month. I haven't seen her this happy since her parents left. You is a talented girl, Mei Lin replied. She just needed to believe in herself. And thank you for believing in her. And in the other children. When the audience left, Mei Lin helped clean up the props. Li Gangdu approached and silently extended his hand. What's this? She asked, surprised. A handshake. You did it. You really did it. Mei Lin shook his hand and, for the first time in 2 months, felt she had earned his respect. I think you'll make a good teacher, he added. Only will? Who am I now? Right now, you're a teacher who is learning. And that's already something. That night, Mei Lin couldn't sleep. She lay in her tiny room, recalling the children's happy faces, the audience's applause, the words of gratitude from the parents. For the first time in many years, she felt she was doing something truly important. Not spending money on entertainment, not attending social events, but helping children believe in themselves and their abilities. November brought the first serious cold and a problem Mei Lin hadn't foreseen. The old heating system in the school was failing, and the stove in her small house started to smoke. The chimney needs repair, Li Gangdu said, inspecting the stove. And the school boiler will break down completely soon. How much will it cost? Mei Lin asked. 50,000. Maybe more. Where can we get that money? Nowhere. The school budget doesn't cover such sums. Mei Lin thought. After 3 months in the village, she understood how hard the locals lived. Her salary of 18,000 now seemed enough to eat simply and by necessities. What if I find sponsors? She suggested. Your wealthy friends? Li Gangdu asked skeptically. Not friends. Former classmates, my father's colleagues. Many of them have successful businesses. And why should they spend money on our school? Because it's the right thing to do, Mei Lin replied simply. That evening, she went to Aunt Kim to ask permission to use the landline. The connection was poor, but she managed to reach Seoul. The first number was her former classmate, Yu Mi-rae, now running an advertising agency. Mei Lin? A surprised voice answered. Is that really you? We thought you went to Europe. No, I'm in the village. Working as a teacher. In a village? You must be joking. I'm not. Mi-rae, I need help. Our school's heating is broken, the children are cold. Mei Lin, I'm sorry, but I'm going through a difficult time in my business. I can't afford charity. But it's only 50,000. For you it may be small, but for me it's a manager's monthly salary. Sorry. The conversation ended. Mei Lin dialed her former classmates one by one. Polite refusals, blunt refusals, the result was the same. How's it going? Li Gangdu asked when he found her late in Aunt Kim's store. Bad, Mei Lin answered honestly. No one wants to help. They don't want to or can't. Don't want. Ji Hun said rural schools are an anachronism and they'll be closed anyway. Li Gangdu nodded, expected. Why expected? These are children. Their education. For your friends, these children are an abstraction. They've never seen them, don't know their names, their stories. It's easier to donate to a charity auction in a 5-star hotel. So we'll just freeze? We'll find another way. The next day, the situation worsened, heavy rains turned into wet snow. The school was so cold that the children sat in jackets and hats. Teacher Li, you approached during recess, can we go home? My fingers are frozen. Mei Lin looked at the classroom full of bundled up children and made a decision, gather everyone. No lessons today. Tomorrow? Miho asked. Tomorrow too. Until the heating is fixed. Li Gangdu found her in the teacher's room, packing textbooks. The right decision, he said. Children can get sick in this cold. And then? Wait for spring? There's one option. We can try borrowing money from the bank using the school building as collateral. And if we can't repay it? We'll lose the school. Mei Lin thought. The risk was huge, but there was no alternative. How much time do we have? Until the end of the week. Then the pipes could burst from the frost, and the repair will cost 10 times more. That night, Mei Lin lay awake, listening to the wind howl outside. She thought about the children, their trust, the fact that she could let them down. Thought about her father, who put her in this situation. Thought about Li Gangdu, risking everything for other people's children. By morning, she had made a decision. I know what to do, she told Li Gangdu, meeting him at the school. What exactly? I'll sell my jewelry. I have Cartier earrings and a bracelet I haven't had appraised yet. And Gyeonggi-do, they should give 60 to 70,000 for them. Li Gangdu looked at her in surprise. Are you serious? Absolutely. Just help me get to the city. But these are your last valuable possessions. So what? Mei Lin shrugged. Jewelry won't keep the children warm. And besides, she smirked, it's hard to wear Cartier with a village shop sweater. 2 days later, they returned from Gyeonggi-do with the money for repairs. The jeweler carefully inspected the pieces through a loupe but ultimately gave a good price, 75,000 won. Enough for both the boiler repair and a new stove for your little house, Li Gangdu said on the way back. The main thing is that the children won't freeze, Mei Lin replied. She looked out the bus window at the passing fields, thinking how much she had changed over these months. Losing jewelry worth 500,000 won would have been a tragedy for her before. Now, she only felt relief and anticipation. Tomorrow the children could return to a warm classroom. Thank you, Li Gangdu said quietly. For what? For not being what I thought you were. And what did you think of me? Selfish and spoiled. Maybe I was, Mei Lin said thoughtfully. But people change. They do, he agreed, and for the first time since they met, he smiled at her genuinely and warmly. December in the village of Yeongin was snowy and frosty, but the school was now warm and cozy. The children returned to lessons with doubled enthusiasm, and Mei Lin felt like a real teacher. Her lessons became events for the entire school. She had learned not only to teach the curriculum but also to turn each class into a small adventure. Ancient history was taught through journeys to European museums, mathematics through calculating distances between capitals, and literature accompanied by theatrical performances. Today we're going to ancient Greece, she announced in history class. Imagine you are participating in the Olympic Games. The children competed eagerly, imagining themselves as ancient athletes. Li Gangdu began visiting her lessons more often, at first out of professional curiosity, and then simply because he enjoyed watching her work. Amazing, he said after a particularly successful literature lesson. The children remember the material better than with the standard program. I just do what would have interested me at their age, Mei Lin replied. And what would have interested you? Dreaming of distant countries, imagining myself as the hero of stories, feeling important and talented. And are you succeeding? In what exactly? Feeling important and talented. Mei Lin thought for a moment. You know, for the first time in my life, yes. In Seoul, I was just the daughter of a wealthy man. A beautiful accessory at social events. But here, I'm needed. Truly needed. Their conversations became increasingly personal. In the evenings, after lessons ended, they often stayed at school, preparing lesson plans or simply talking over a cup of tea. Tell me about your sister, Mei Lin asked one evening. Li Gangdu's expression softened, so Yang was the complete opposite of me. I always pursued success, money, and career. She dreamed of a simple life, of helping people. Was she a teacher? No, she worked in an orphanage. But she dreamed of getting a teaching degree and moving to the countryside. She said city children would get a good education anyway, but rural children were forgotten by everyone. And you didn't understand her? Not at all. I thought she was a foolish idealist. I offered her a job at my firm, an apartment in central Seoul, money for anything she wanted. And she refused. And now? Do you understand? Li Gangdu looked out the window at the lights of the village houses. Now I understand she was right. Money and career don't make life meaningful. But you were a successful lawyer. Surely you helped people? I helped the rich get even richer, he said with a bitter smile. I defended corporate interests against ordinary citizens. I called it legal business protection elegantly enough. And you don't regret leaving it all behind? Not for a second. For the first time in my life, I am doing something truly important. Mei Lin nodded. I understand. I feel the same way. Their eyes met, and attention hung in the air. Mei Lin felt her heart beat faster, and Li Gangdu quickly looked away. It's late, he murmured. You need to rest. But their relationship had changed. In their joint work, a special harmony emerged. They understood each other with half a word, complimented each other's ideas, and worked as a single team. The children noticed it first. Teacher Li, are you going to marry Teacher Li? You asked one day during recess. What a question. Mei Lin blushed. But you're always together and smile at each other like in the movies. We're just working together, Mei Lin tried to explain, but the girl shook her head skeptically. My grandmother says that when people look at each other in a special way, it means they are in love. That evening, there was an accident at school. A pipe burst in the basement, and the classrooms began to flood. Mei Lin and Li Gangdu worked late into the night, bailing out water and sealing the leak. We'll have to cancel lessons tomorrow, sighed Li Gangdu, inspecting the wet textbooks. What if we hold classes at my house? Mei Lin suggested. It's small, but enough for one day. In your tiny place? He asked, surprised. So what? It will be cozy. Like in the old days, students gathered at the teacher's house. The next day, her little home became a real school. Children sat on the floor, on the bed, on the only 2 chairs. Mei Lin taught standing by the stove, which served as a blackboard. Now imagine we're in the hut of a fairy tale teacher, she told the children. And we're learning magical sciences. The children were delighted by the unusual lesson. Li Gangdu sat in the corner, observing the scene with a gentle smile. "Thank you," he said that evening, when the children had gone home. "You saved the day." "We saved it," Mei Lin corrected him. "We're a team." They were left alone in the small room, lit only by the stove. Li Gangdu helped tidy the improvised classroom, and their hands accidentally touched as they both reached for a fallen textbook. "Mei Lin," he said quietly, holding her hand. "Yes? I need to tell you something." "What?" He paused, struggling with himself, then looked her in the eyes resolutely. "I've fallen in love with you." Mei Lin's heart skipped a beat. She had long felt a growing attachment to this man but had been afraid to admit it to herself. "Gangdu, I know you're here temporarily. I know that in a few months you'll return to your world. But I can't stay silent any longer." "How do you know I'll leave?" "Because you don't belong here. You're too bright, too talented for our backwater." Mei Lin stepped closer. "And what if I don't want to leave?" "You don't want to now. But when you inherit your wealth, you'll remember your old life." "You don't know me at all," she said with a sad smile. "My old life was beautiful but empty. Here, for the first time, I feel truly alive." Mei Lin. She didn't let him finish, standing on tiptoe and pressing her lips to his. The kiss was gentle, full of unspoken feelings and hopes. "I love you too," she whispered. "I love you for your devotion to the children, for your strength, for showing me what a real life is." They stood in each other's arms, listening to the crackling fire in the stove and feeling the last barriers between them dissolve. "What happens now?" Li Gangdu asked. "I don't know," Mei Lin admitted honestly. "But I know I want to be by your side." "And the inheritance?" "We'll see. Maybe money isn't as important as I thought." That night, they stayed together for the first time, and Mei Lin realized she had found not only love but also a home. January's frosts gripped the village, but the school radiated a special warmth and joy. Mei Lin and Li Gangdu's relationship was no longer a secret. The children watched the couple with delight, and the villagers nodded approvingly when they met them on the street. "A good pair," Aunt Kim would say. "Both city people, both smart. And they love the children." Mei Lin blossomed with happiness. Work gave her satisfaction, love filled her heart with warmth, and life in the village no longer felt like a punishment. But in mid-January, an event occurred that changed everything. Inspectors from the regional education office arrived at the school. Two men in formal suits with folders of documents conducted a real inspection, checking journals, questioning children, examining lesson plans. "The program does not meet standards," declared the senior inspector. "The children are studying material that is not part of the mandatory curriculum. But they achieve excellent results." Li Gangdu protested. "Look at their test papers. Results are not the main thing. Compliance with ministry requirements is what matters." The second inspector reviewed Mei Lin's documents. "You have no teaching credentials. How can you work as a teacher?" "She has a degree from the University of London," Li Gangdu interjected. "In economics. That does not qualify her to teach in a school." The inspection lasted 2 days. The inspectors nitpicked every detail, from class journals to the lesson schedule. Finally, they issued their verdict: the school does not meet educational standards. Teacher Li Mei Lin has no right to work in an educational institution. The school is recommended for closure. "Close it?" Li Gangdu exclaimed. "But the children will be left without education. The children will be transferred to a school in the regional center. There the program is better, and teachers are qualified." 100 kilometers away? How will they get there?" "Not our problem," the inspector replied coldly. That evening, after the commission left, Mei Lin, Li Gangdu, and several parents gathered in the teacher's room. "What should we do?" the adults asked. "We can't send the children to a boarding school." "What if we hire another teacher?" suggested Katie's grandmother. No one will move to the village for our salaries, sighed Li Gangdu. Mei Lin agreed only because of special circumstances. What special circumstances? Asked one of the parents. Mei Lin and Li Gangdu exchanged glances. They had kept secret her background and reasons for coming. I will tell you, Mei Lin decided. You have the right to know the truth. She explained her father's will, the debts, and that working at the school had been her only way to claim the inheritance. So you came here not for love of the children, but for money? Asked the mother of one of the students in shock. At first, yes, Mei Lin answered honestly. But everything changed. Now these children are the most important thing in my life. And the inheritance? Someone asked. I don't know. I'm not thinking about it. The main thing is to save the school. The parents left upset and confused. Many of them looked at Mei Lin with suspicion. Their trust had been betrayed. Worst of all, Li Gangdu found out. So all this time you lied? He asked when they were alone. I didn't lie. I just didn't tell the whole truth. That's the same thing. I thought you genuinely wanted to help the children. I do. I really do now. But at first, his voice was full of pain. At first, you were just doing your duty for the inheritance? Mei Lin could not answer, because it was true. I see, Li Gangdu nodded. So my sister was right. You can't trust someone who comes to a school not out of vocation. Gangdu, please, listen. Listen to what? How you played at nobility but only thought about money. But now it's different. Now I love you, I love the children. Now, he repeated bitterly. And what will happen when you get your billions? Will you stay in our backwater out of great love? Mei Lin realized arguments were useless. The trust they had built over months had collapsed in a single moment. I'm not the person you think I am, she said quietly. Maybe not. But I no longer know who you really are. He left, leaving her alone in the empty school. The following days were agonizing. Li Gangdu remained cold and formal. The children felt the tension between the adults, and parents held meetings discussing the school's future. Mei Lin tried to work as usual, but she understood her time here was ending. In 3 weeks, her contract would expire, granting her the inheritance. And the school would close. Maybe it's for the best, Aunt Kim told her one day. You're young, beautiful, rich. Why do you need our wilderness? Your wilderness has become my home, Mei Lin replied. Home is where you are loved and awaited. Here, people now doubt your motives. It was a painful truth. Mei Lin felt the change in the villagers' attitude. They no longer greeted her warmly. At school, everything had changed too. The children still gravitated toward her, but she saw questions in their eyes. It was especially painful to notice Katie's coolness. Teacherly, the girl approached her after class. Is it true that you came here only for the money? Who told you that? The adults. They say you will get a lot of money and leave. Mei Lin sat down beside her. Sometimes people start doing something for one reason and continue for another. I came here because I had no choice. But I stayed because I love you all. And will you leave? I don't know, little one. Much depends on things beyond my control. That evening, Mei Lin sat alone at home, sorting through textbooks and thinking about the future. Only 3 weeks remained before the contract ended. What would happen next? Suddenly, there was a knock at the door. On the threshold stood Miho, pale, terrified, wearing only a shirt despite the cold. Teacherly, he shouted, gasping. Fire! The school is on fire. Mei Lin rushed outside and saw flames over the school building. Without thinking, she ran toward it, pulling on her jacket as she went. Villagers had already gathered. Some were trying to douse the fire with buckets of water, while others carried furniture and documents out of the building. Where's Li Gangdu? Mei Lin shouted. Inside the school. Someone replied. He's checking if all the children are evaluated. All the children are home. She called back. Why is he still there? At that moment, Li Gangdu ran out of the burning building, carrying a small figure in his arms. You! Mei Lin gasped. The girl was unconscious, her face blackened with soot. Li Gangdu looked terrible too, his hair singed, hands and face burned. She went back for her diary, he panted. She locked herself in the classroom out of fear when the fire started. We need to get her to a hospital immediately. Mei Lin shouted. The nearest one is in the regional center, a man said. About an hour away if the roads are good. Then quickly. Li Gangdu got into the car, holding Katie in his arms. Mei Lin sat beside him. I'll go alone, he said without looking at her. Don't even think about it. She snapped. You're burned, you could lose consciousness on the way. The drive to the hospital was a nightmare. You would come in and out of consciousness. Li Gangdu groaned in pain but never let go of the girl. Hold on, little one, Mei Lin whispered, stroking Katie's hair. Everything will be okay. I'm scared, the girl whispered. Don't be. We're with you. We won't leave you. At the hospital, Katie was immediately taken to the ICU, and Li Gangdu to the burn unit. Mei Lin stayed alone in the corridor, waiting for news. She spent the entire night in the hospital, dozing on a hard chair near the wards. By morning, Katie's grandmother and other villagers arrived. How is she? The grandmother asked, tears in her eyes. The doctors say the danger has passed. Smoke inhalation, but not critical. Thank God. And Gangdu? He has serious burns on his hands and face. But his life is not in danger. During the day, Mei Lin was allowed to see Li Gangdu. He lay in the ward, bandaged but conscious. How's you? Was the first thing he asked. She'll live. The doctor said she can go home in a week. Good, he closed his eyes in relief. Gangdu, Mei Lin called softly. You're a hero. You risked your life for a child. Anyone in my place would have done the same. No, not anyone. You're special. That's why I love you. He opened his eyes and looked at her. Mei Lin. I know I lost your trust. I know you think I'm a liar and selfish. But there's one thing I've never lied about. What? That I love you. Truly, with a strong love. And if I need to prove it, I will. Li Gangdu was silent, staring at the ceiling. The school burned down? He asked after a while. Not completely. The first floor is intact, the second floor burned. It can be restored. With what money? I'm thinking about it. Thinking about spending your billions? Mei Lin sat on the edge of the bed, taking his healthy hand in hers. Gangdu, I've made a decision. I want to tell you. What decision? I'm giving up the inheritance. He turned his head sharply. What? Officially giving it up. I'll keep only enough to pay off debts. But that's 2 billion. So what? Money won't make me happy. But losing you and the children would make me miserable forever. Are you serious? Absolutely. Tomorrow I'll go to Seoul and formally renounce the main part of the inheritance. The remaining sum will be enough to restore the school. Li Gangdu was silent for a long time, then asked softly, why? Because I understood the meaning of my father's will. While Li Gangdu lay in the hospital and you recovered, Mei Lin returned to the village to deal with the aftermath of the fire. The school was a sad sight, soot-blackened walls, a collapsed second-floor roof, the lingering smell of smoke. But the main problem wasn't even the destruction, it was the authorities' reaction. The visiting commission issued the final verdict: the school is to be demolished. Restoration is not economically feasible. And the children? Mei Lin asked. They will be transferred to the regional center boarding school. The decision is final. That night, Mei Lin sat at her desk and wrote a statement renouncing the inheritance. She kept only enough to cover her debts and a small reserve for living expenses. The next morning, she went to Seoul. The notary was stunned by her decision. Miss Li, you understand you're giving up 2 billion won? I understand. But why? You fulfilled the will's conditions. Not completely. I still have 2 weeks. But even if you don't finish the days, you've served the main term. You're entitled to the inheritance. I don't want it. But it's enormous money. You know, Mei Lin smiled, I realized my father was very wise. What do you mean? He knew money made me empty and useless. And he found a way to fix it. I don't understand. He learned about Li Gangdu's story. About his sister. About his school. And he understood that only a person like him could change me. The notary looked puzzled. You mean you think your father specifically chose this school? I'm sure of it. My father was always a strategist. He knew I didn't need teaching experience, I needed a confrontation with real values. And you think you found them? I found love, the meaning of life, the understanding of true happiness. Isn't that better than billions? After submitting the renunciation, Mei Lin asked the notary for one favor, find me the phone number of the best construction company in the country. The one that takes on complex projects. Why? I want to know how much it will cost to restore a rural school. That evening, she met with the director of a large construction firm. Showing him photos of the damage, she asked, how much would a full restoration cost? About 15 to 20 million won. But why restore a school in the middle of nowhere? Economically, it's unfeasible. What if I find a way to make this project attractive for business? How? Create a center for distance education. Modern technology, satellite internet, digital classrooms. A pilot project for the whole country. The director was intrigued, interesting idea. But who will finance it? I know people who would be interested. Not as charity, but as investment in educational technology. Amazingly, the idea caught on. Companies agreed to partially fund the project in exchange for rights to use the developed methods. Okay, said one representative. But we need a competent project manager. Someone who understands both business and education. You already have one, Mei Lin replied. I will manage the project myself. You? But you're not a teacher. But I have an economics degree, language skills, and understanding of modern children. And most importantly, I know this school from the inside. Within a week, Mei Lin returned to the village with signed contracts and a school restoration plan. Most importantly, she brought the authorities permission to create an experimental educational center. By then, Li Gangdu had been discharged from the hospital. He was sitting in his house, sullen and depressed, when Mei Lin knocked. May I come in? She asked. If it's business, come in. If it's personal, better not. Business, she said, entering. Li Gangdu sat in a chair, his hands still bandaged, burn marks visible on his face. How are you feeling? Fine. What did you want? I wanted to show you something. She took a folder of documents and placed it on the table in front of him. What's this? Contracts for restoring the school. 20 million won in investments. Li Gangdu looked at her skeptically. Where did the money come from? I found investors. I convinced them that modern educational technologies can work even in a rural village. How? We're creating a distance learning center. Satellite internet, video calls with the country's best teachers, digital technology. Li Gangdu flipped through the documents, increasingly astonished. This is serious? Absolutely. Construction starts in a month. By autumn, the children will have a new school. And who will manage it? Me. If you don't mind working together. Li Gangdu lifted his head and looked at her intently. And the inheritance? I gave it up. Completely? I kept only enough to pay off debts. The rest went to the charitable fund, as my father intended. Why? Mei Lin sat beside him, because I understood my father's plan. He didn't want to punish me, he wanted to save me. To give me a chance to find real love and the meaning of life. And did you? I did. But now I could lose it because of my own mistakes. Li Gangdu was silent for a long moment, reflecting on her words. So you're staying in the village not for money? I'm staying for you. For the children. For this place, which has become my home. And if I can't forgive you, then I'll work alongside you as a colleague. And hope that in time you'll see, people can change. Li Gangdu reached out with his healthy hand and touched her face. You really have changed. You've become a completely different person. I've become who I was meant to be from the start. Thanks to you. Mei Lin. Yes? I love you. I love the real you, not the person who came here 6 months ago. So, we have a chance? We do, he smiled for the first time in many days. We have a chance to build something beautiful. Both the school and our life. Spring came early and warm to the village of Yeongin. Builders had been working on the site of the burned school for a month, and each day the building transformed. Instead of the old two-story structure, a modern complex rose, with large windows, comfortable classrooms, and technological innovations. Mei Lin spent her days moving between the construction site and temporary classrooms set up in the village club. The children eagerly awaited the new school, while she coordinated contractors and prepared programs for the upgraded facility. The internet will be installed next week, the communications engineer told her. Speeds will match the capital. Excellent. And the video conferencing equipment? Already on the way. It will be set up immediately after the finishing work. Li Gangdu gradually recovered from his burns. The doctor said scars would remain, but it didn't bother him. The important thing was that his hands could work again. Do you think the children can handle the new technology? He asked Mei Lin one evening. Of course. They adapt to new things faster than adults. You should see how Miho is learning presentation software. And you? You dreams of virtually visiting museums around the world. She says she wants to be a tour guide and teach other children about art. After the fire, the villagers' attitude toward Mei Lin changed dramatically. They saw that she had given up everything to restore the school, renounced billions for their children. Distrust turned into deep gratitude and respect. Our teacher is special, Aunt Kim told everyone who visited. She was rich, but became one of us. And she's building a school better than any city one. In May, an event finally confirmed Mei Lin's sincerity. Journalists came to film a story about the extraordinary educational project. Tell our viewers, the program's host asked Mei Lin, what made you, a media tycoon's daughter, stay in a remote village? Love, Mei Lin replied simply. Love for a man? Love for a man, for the children, for this place. For a life that has meaning. But you gave up $1 billion inheritance. Not lost, exchanged for something more valuable. The chance to wake up every morning knowing the day will be meaningful. And you don't regret it? Not for a second. When the story aired, the school in Yeongin became famous nationwide. Delegations of officials, teachers from other regions, and representatives of international educational organizations visited. We would like to replicate your experience, said a Ministry of Education representative. Are you willing to consult on similar projects in other villages? I am, Mei Lin answered. On one condition, I stay here. This is my school, my children. By summer, construction was complete. The new school was stunning, spacious, bright classrooms, modern equipment, a library with e-books, a gym with professional flooring. On the opening day, over 200 guests arrived. The children stood at the school entrance in formal uniforms, holding balloons. Dear friends, Mei Lin addressed the crowd. A year ago, I came to this village as a completely different person. I thought only of myself, unaware of the value of simple human connections. These children and this person, she looked at Li Gangdu, taught me what real life is. And now, the students have the floor, announced Li Gangdu. You stepped forward, we want to thank our teacher, Li. She showed us that the world is bigger than our village, that we have a future, and that we can dream big. The children recited a poem they had written in honor of the new school. Not a single eye in the hall was dry. After the official ceremony, guests explored the classrooms, testing the new equipment. In one room, a trial lesson was in progress. Children were interacting via video with peers in Tokyo, learning about Japanese culture. Amazing! The teachers exclaimed. Rural children are receiving world-class education. In the evening, after the guests left, Mei Lin and Li Gangdu remained alone in the school. They walked through the empty classrooms, admiring the fruits of their labor. Do you think we'll succeed? Li Gangdu asked. Live up to everyone's expectations? We will, Mei Lin replied confidently. We have everything we need, modern equipment, government support, and most importantly, love for the children. And for each other, he added, hugging her. And for each other, she agreed. They stood by the window, looking at the village lights turning on in the homes. Their village, their home, their new life. Summer passed quickly as they prepared for the new school year. Mei Lin developed unique programs combining traditional education with modern technology, while Li Gangdu managed organizational matters. The school enrolled not only local children but also kids from nearby villages. Families moved specifically to give their children a better education. We already have 30 students, Li Gangdu reported. We'll need to hire additional teachers. A good problem, Mei Lin laughed. Better an overcrowded school than a closed one. Their relationship strengthened and became even more harmonious. They worked as a single team, complementing each other in everything. Li Gangdu admired Mei Lin's organizational skills, and she admired his teaching talent. You know what I realized? He said one evening. What? Your father was a genius. He knew only extreme circumstances could radically change a person. Yes, he was always a strategist. Too bad I understood it only after his death. Do you think he would be proud of you? I hope so. For the first time in my life, I'm doing something truly meaningful. At the end of August, a week before school started, Li Gangdu took Mei Lin for a walk to the river near the village, their favorite place for evening conversations. Remember the first day you got stuck in the mud with your 50,001 shoes? He laughed. How could I forget? And you looked at me like I was hopeless. Not hopeless. From another world. I thought there was a chasm between us. And now? Now I think we're meant for each other. They sat on the riverbank, watching the sun set behind the horizon. Mei Lin rested her head on Li Gangdu's shoulder, feeling completely happy. Mei Lin, he whispered. I want to tell you something important. Li Gangdu stood, took a small box from his pocket, and knelt on one knee. Li Mei Lin, he said solemnly, you have changed my life. You taught me to love not only children but a woman. You showed me that happiness isn't in money and success, but in sharing life with a kindred soul. Will you marry me? Mei Lin looked at him, tears in her eyes. The simple gold ring reflected the sunset light. Yes, she whispered. Of course, yes. He placed the ring on her finger and rose to kiss her. You know what's most amazing? Mei Lin said, admiring the ring. What? A year ago I dreamed of a diamond the size of a walnut. And now this simple gold ring feels more precious than any jewel in the world. Because it represents love, not status. Exactly. News of their engagement spread instantly through the village. The residents were thrilled. Everyone had come to genuinely love this couple who had done so much for their children. The wedding will be held in the schoolyard, Aunt Kim announced. The whole village will be our guests. And we'll sew your dress, offered the local craftswomen. And we'll bake the cake, added others. Mei Lin was deeply touched by their attention. In her previous life, her wedding would have been a lavish affair in a 5-star hotel with hundreds of guests she barely knew. Now, she was surrounded by people who had become her real family. Epilogue: Wedding in the schoolyard. The September morning was sunny and warm. The schoolyard was decorated with handmade garlands and flowers from the school beds. Tables were made from school furniture and covered with white cloth sewn by local women. Mei Lin prepared for the wedding in her small home, which now felt like a palace. The dress, made by village seamstresses from simple white fabric, was modest but beautiful. "You look stunning," said Aunt Kim, helping with her hair. "Thank you for everything," Mei Lin replied. "For accepting me as one of your own. You are one of us. Our teacher, our pride." At the appointed time, Mei Lin left her house and walked to the school. Along the way, villagers greeted her, all dressed up, carrying flowers and smiling. At the school entrance, Li Gang-du stood in a simple yet elegant suit. His smile was so radiant that Mei Lin felt her heart overflow with love. "Ready?" he asked, offering his hand. "Ready," she replied. The ceremony was conducted by a local civil registrar who had come from the regional center. Simple vows sounded solemn against the backdrop of the school building. "Do you, Li Mei Lin, take Li Gang-du to be your husband?" "I do." "Do you, Li Gang-du, take Li Mei Lin to be your wife?" "I do." "I now pronounce you husband and wife." Applause and congratulations echoed throughout the village. The children shouted, "Bitter," a traditional Korean exclamation at weddings, while adults laughed and cried at the same time. After the ceremony, the celebration began. Tables were filled with homemade dishes prepared by the villagers. The cake, baked by local bakers, was not as refined as one from a fancy restaurant, but far more delicious. "Dear newlyweds," Grandpa Miho gave a speech. "Thank you for staying with us. For giving our children a future. For showing that love is stronger than money." "Bitter," shouted the guests. Mei Lin and Li Gang-du kissed amid the villagers' joyful cheers. In the evening, as the celebration wound down, the children approached with a handmade gift, a large card they had drawn and signed together. "Thank you to our teacher Li for teaching us to dream, and to teacher Li for showing us strength," read you aloud. "We love you very much," the children said in unison. Mei Lin could not hold back her tears. She hugged the children, realizing that this was true wealth, the love of the people whose lives you've touched. "And now, dancing," someone announced. Music played, and the newlyweds opened the dance program. They twirled in the simple schoolyard under the starry sky, surrounded by people who had become their family. "Do you regret anything?" asked Li Gang-du, holding his wife close. "Only one thing," Mei Lin replied. "What?" "That I didn't come here sooner. We could have had more time together. But ahead of us is a whole life." "A whole life," she agreed, and they kissed again under the applause of the guests. Thus ended the story of a spoiled heiress who had sought money but found love. A story showing that true wealth is not measured in billions, but in the ability to make the world a better place. A story proving that sometimes you must lose everything to gain what really matters. The next day, the new school in the village of Yeongin opened for the new academic year. Mei Lin, now Mrs. Li Gang-du, welcomed her students with the smile of a happy woman who had found her place in life. And when someone asked her what she dreamed of, she would answer, "Nothing. All my dreams have already come true."